The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm not a fan of, well, let me put it this way. One thing I like about comics is I like that you get to imagine kind of your own worlds, your own universes. You get to imagine where these characters will go. And then if you're so inclined, you can write fan fiction, have your own headcanon, all that other kind of stuff. I think that's part of the fun of quite frankly, any type of entertainment. Nothing wrong with it. But I also think there's this unwritten, unspoken balance that needs to occur where you don't let the headcanon take on a life of its own, where suddenly it's, that the headcanon starts to insist that it informs the actual product, whatever it happens to be. It's like, granted, you're a Harry Potter fan, good for you, everything else. Draco and Harry are not gay for each other. And that's not a knock against the LGBT community. It's just that it doesn't align to anything that the books talk about, and it breaks big aspects of the story, and it's weird. It's fine as fan fiction. It's fine as, again, your own personal kind of headcanon of what things could happen, but it's terrible in terms of, having it warp and change the actual story. And by the way, you could make the same argument, just to be 100% clear. This isn't about LGBTQ rights. If you decided to have, I don't know, Hermione, you start to fall in love with one of the professors. I just like, well, I guess she did have a crush on Lockhart. Anyway, what am I saying? I'm revealing. This is when you listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks, you get this knowledge of Harry Potter fandom way more than is normal. But I'm not a big, but in general, I'm not a big fan of kind of the way that headcanon has started to insert itself into Twitter and into some articles and everything else. So I want to comment on this article. There's Zach already did a video on this, so he kind of took all the fun out of it. But CBR did this new article called 10 Queer Headcanons We Need to See Confirmed. And the question is, why do you need to see them confirmed? Why? So, we basically go down this list of headcanons that there may or may not be real. So they talk about the Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine could be poly. Well, clearly, the current, they've shown Wolverine sleeping with Jean. They've shown Scott sleeping with Jean. They've shown this bedroom where Jean's between both of them, so people can come and go. They haven't, really kind of hinted that Wolverine and Cyclops are, but they basically have hinted that they're sharing Jean, and that's a relationship they came with. Okay. Then they talk about Kitty Pryde and Magic, and there's definitely been, plenty of hinting that maybe something could happen there. That always strikes me as a case where, the two, you don't need to go for relationships, but with what they've done with Kitty, what they've done with Magic, the two of them get kind of sloppy drunk one night and one thing leads to another. Yeah, okay. But from there, the thing jumps off the shark. It really jumps the shark, whatever. It starts to really highlight why headcanon is such a dumb idea by saying Havoc could be a major trans superhero. Havoc. Now, how is Havoc a trans superhero? It never really makes sense. It just says that Alex Summers is actually a closeted trans woman. Havoc's inability to define herself independently is because of a personal refusal to. Havoc's new confidence. But what? This is all like somebody who's never, just not read comics. Like that makes no sense. Then we go to like Deadpool and Spider-Man are gay. Magic is asexual, which I guess, again, doesn't fit the earlier thing. I don't know. Most of, a good portion of Magic's, Liliana's, time span within the X universe has been her as a little girl. So that's just kind of weird that you're getting there. Yeah, Storm and Yukio. Okay. They're probably assuming that Gambit is obviously bi. Why? Why? Because Kitty Pryde and Rachel Gray, basically everybody Kitty Pryde is friends with, gay. Professor and Magneto, gay. Warlock and Doug Ramsey have been melding bodies since the 80s. Yeah, I mean, it's a different species. I don't know. Anyway, as I said, others have made better jokes about this whole article, which is, batshit insane. But the problem is, and I guess the thesis of this video is that comics are not meant to have this happen to them. Now, I know that contradicts a little bit with what I said before, which is, one of the fun parts about comics is you get to kind of imagine and invent, where things go. You get to think about the future and you get to tell these stories to yourself. And I think that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. It's interesting. But I think when the comic gets so insistent, and by the way, I'd say the same thing true for people who are, super hardcore about kind of the Snyderverse and that there's no other way that the story can be told unless Zack Snyder's involved. All of that kind of stuff leads to craziness. And I think what you got here is good examples of that craziness where you start finding reasons why Havoc is actually trans somehow. Like, how does that make sense? I don't know, but I guarantee you there is somebody in the X office right now frantically rubbing one out at the idea of being able to do that in the comic long. What does that serve? I nobody knows, but I don't know. I've come to hate it, and I'm struggling with this entire idea of, on one hand, I love the fact that comics can be anything, and you can have these kind of imaginary stories. And I've had many a good hour spent in a comic shop with customers coming in and talking about their storylines and things they would do, and a lot of great creativity. That is fun. Somehow that is morphed into, let's see who we can make, different. I guess that's the part about that. That's the major difference between headcanon now. And you saw a little bit with Iceman, and some people took a couple panels pretty majorly out of context and decided this proves the character was always gay. Well, the character clearly wasn't. And that's not a knock. That's not a knock against gay characters. Lots of gay characters in the Marvel and DC universe. It's fine. But it's that example of, let's take something that really didn't exist and just twist it around until you get to Havoc is trans. That's the bizarre world that you live in. And by the way, if Marvel did decide to make Havoc trans, my annoyance would not be because there's a trans superhero. My annoyance would be that this is fucking stupid and doesn't fit the actual character that we're talking about. That's the annoying part. So I guess the part that used to exist with headcanon and fan fiction, all that rest of that stuff, is once upon a time, the people who wrote fan fiction and were really involved in this had a really deep understanding of the characters. It's kind of, inherent and necessary to writing these ideas. If you didn't know the characters, you didn't know the lore, didn't know the world, there was no way you could write this kind of fan fiction. You had to be really versed in it. And Marvel knows this because when they were originally writing Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, G. Willow Wilson, part of her hobbies was to do superhero fanfic. And they had lots of comments in the comics about how she knows everything about the superheroes and she has to study kind of their moves and learn about what the characters are all about in order to write her fanfic. That was an important part of her hobby. However, if now your headcanon tells you that Havoc is trans somehow, you're just a lunatic. To me, that is equivalent to the person who believes that the Silver Surfer used to be a DC character and that DC lost it to Marvel in a bet, which is, I've told this story before. There's a guy who would come into my comic shop who believed that up and down, 100%. That is absolutely 100% what's going on there. And it was dumb. And it made no sense. And yet, that's what you got anyway. Anyway, headcanon, fanfic, it's supposed to be informed. This stuff is, shock value? Is that what this is? I have no idea. Anyway, what about you? You like fanfic, headcanon kind of stuff, or you like me where it's just you've tipped over. You're annoyed at this point. as that's certainly where I'm at. Anyway, thanks for listening.